RAYE's second studio album, This Music May Contain Hope, has been out for a minute. This album has already spawned a worldwide hit with last year's Where's My Husband. It marks a mix of jazz, blues, and orchestral pop fashioned into a sprawling musical odyssey. You guys know the drill. I will give my overall take on it before going track by track and assigning a score. So here are my overall thoughts. RAYE is quite a unique case. She started very young, signed to a label who failed her miserably. She went on to release her breakout debut, My 21st Century Blues, independently to great success, even sweeping the Brit Awards in 2024. This Music May Contain Hope feels like a victory lap after that underdog Cinderella success story. This album is assembled operatically with 4 movements going from autumn to winter, then spring and summer. It's ambitious, maximalist in a way that I don't think any conventional big label release could be nowadays. Within individual songs, there are genre shifts and monologues. The WhatsApp Shakespeare is a great example of this. Throughout the song, we see so many rhythmic and genre shifts, it plays out almost like a madcap scene in a musical. I'm gonna get the praise out of the way. RAYE is a magnificent performer. I think she's well aware of her vocal prowess. She raps, sings, and talks us through her tales with well-placed confidence. This is most evident on Click Clack Symphony, which features the legendary composer Hans Zimmer. She not only manages to hold her own, but serves as a maestro, guiding us through this anthemic track about finding healing through friends and music. And don't get me started on the vocal run at the very end of Nightingale Lane. RAYE has talked about how she hates being pigeonholed into a single genre, and this album allows her to kind of rebel against that and just do everything. She's doing big band swing, she's doing classical sounds, hip-hop, old school show tunes, club bangers in there. All throughout, I think her voice cuts through each of the demands of these specific genres without any drag. This woman is a Swiss Army knife musically, and she doesn't let us forget about that a single moment. This record has been lauded and scrutinized because of how extravagant and indulgent it is. It is not easy listening. It runs at 17 tracks in 73 minutes. It's very dense. It demands your attention at all times. I never found myself bored with the album, but towards the end, I felt somewhat exhausted and overwhelmed on my first listen. I think 2 things can be true. RAYE can be praised for being audacious enough to take risk and even write this entire album herself. According to the credits, she wrote all the lyrics. This is all her. But I also have to concede that I didn't feel she curated or edited herself enough on this, for either better or worse. Much emphasis was put on this as being a great first-time listening experience that repeat listens suffer a little because of that. I imagine that a live album from a show will cut down the at times clunky introductions and interludes. There's an occasional reliance on dialogue or spoken interludes in tracks that I feel slightly botch them for me. Lifeboat is my core example of that. The track itself is exactly the gorgeous, inspirational electro-pop anthem that I'm a sucker for, but then in the middle of the track there's an awkward pause. It's a moment where everything kind of stops still and there's a stilted spoken break that cuts the momentum flat. I respected it on the first listen, but upon revisit I wish that there was a shortened version with just RAYE front and center. Lyrically, I also had some mixed thoughts. At times it can get extremely corny and sometimes cliche or trite. One track, I Hate the Way I Look Today, occasionally dips into cringe territory, but it's her delivery being so committed and earnest that you almost end up forgiving it. One thing about RAYE is that she truly believes in what she's singing about and doesn't half-ass it or wink into the camera. Each and every single track, sans maybe Where's My Husband, is almost hostile to radio play or TikTok, and I think that earns props in my book. Production-wise, this one's undeniably a marvel. Each and every track is meticulously rendered to a degree where it almost sounded like liquid honey on my speakers. Each and every instrument used in each track makes itself known and present. RAYE is never drowned out by her own mix, and her features blend into the track seamlessly and not awkwardly. Goodbye Henry is a perfect example of what I was just talking about. I definitely see this album being a contender for Grammys. I think it fits the bill of what the public and voters consider prestige pop. It's impressive, but more importantly, it takes swings at a time where I think music has stagnated into albums that are by committee or just plain out sound like AI wrote them. Not all of RAYE's swings work here, but she deserves props for never phoning it in and celebrating human-made excellence. And now the track by track, which will be a little bit more compact because there's 17 tracks, but here are my initial impressions. The album opens up with a short intro, Girl Under the Grey Cloud, which fills us in on her state of mind. She's out in Paris, the city of love, alone, broken by the world, and her grandmother cameos as a voice note urging her to pray and find peace. I Will Overcome opens the autumn section with a bang as she relays in very wordy verses her crisis. Her old lover still has a grip on her. He's ruined Paris for her. She recalls comparisons to Amy Winehouse, the good and bad of those, before the chorus comes in. The chorus is this reassurance to herself that she will overcome. It's very cinematic. You can almost imagine her walking through city streets, gathering her spirit like a scene in a movie. Beware the South London Lover opens with a ghastly little intro that feels like a trailer to a vintage horror film before exploding into this big brassy number. This one's an example of the production skill on display. The ad-libs peppered throughout add a foreboding sense of anxiety, almost like a chorus of past lovers warning off, this man's next romantic pursuit. I adore the transition from the pre-chorus to the proper chorus. It feels very revved up. The What's Up Shakespeare is a track that's cut into two. RAYE peppers this with references to Eve and the serpent. This What's Up Shakespeare is a killer who presents themselves as a Romeo figure only to be this abusive guy. The first section has this simmering, sinister energy to it, whereas the second half has a theatrical, jaunty production, which juxtaposes the drama as something that happened in hindsight with a comedic insanity to it all. She's realizing how ridiculous all of this was. Winter Woman is a clever little track that interpolates Vivaldi's Winter during the interlude. I think it marks a shift towards the seasons in the album. The track's chorus alludes to RAYE shifting over to this mindset that she has to become a cold-hearted, independent woman akin to the Queen of Hearts. The last section switches up, almost presenting this facade as something that's internally fragile before putting the veil back on. Click Clack Symphony is one of the highlights of the record. If there's any track that you listen to, it's this one. The usage of the click clack of the heels as a metronome and an anchor for the track itself adds some texture to the track. The layering of the vocals emulates the community that she's seeking out in her friends as she moves towards healing rather than avoidance. The verses are so detailed. The bridge initially took me out because of the spoken word until she returned to singing, and I think the outro is just a full-on Hans Zimmer flexing his skills as RAYE monologues over what should be the soundtrack to Christopher Nolan's next film's climax. I Know You're Hurting is another centerpiece to this record. It's a track about being vulnerable and seeking connections with others. It's like a continuation of themes off Click Clack Symphony. It's also a very good vocal showcase for her. She makes the most of 6 minutes. There's not even time for her to shift the melody. During that bridge, she takes advantage of that. I dug that she didn't kill off the momentum with any dialogue here. She's singing with purpose, working with the instrumental at all times. Lifeboat would have been a favorite of mine. The production is done by RAYE, Punctual, and Jordan Riley. It's exemplary here. The lyrics on here are super minimalistic at their core about how she won't give up, but the repetition works in spades here. At times, she delivers it unsure, and then other times, she knows that she's going to be okay. Her uncle does the interlude talking about moving forward after rejection and finding hope. I thought it was very powerful the first listen, but then distracting when I was trying to enjoy this as a standalone track, but the final chorus more than makes up for it. I Hate the Way I Look Today is a cute little ditty where RAYE gives us this theatrical, self-loathing little number with little shifts and a bridge that likes to slow things down a little bit. There's a moment in there where she brings in some backup singers and scats, and she sounds like she's having fun here. I felt like the lyrics were intentionally twee and a little corny, but the delivery and the honesty here really make them work. It feels like a scene in a musical film where the protagonist finally gets over that hurdle of self-hatred at the very end. Goodbye Henry features Al Green. This track is a straightforward recounting about her ex, whose name isn't even Henry. It has a very melancholic shine to it, where she wishes him the best, but she still kind of longs for this old love. The production is the star here. I think it's a vibe, it's gorgeous sounding, it's a very soulful track. Al Green's feature lends it even more weight. He just floats over this beat. I thought they melted very well on the bridge, where they let loose and play off each other. Nightingale Lane is another showy track. It's another highlight of mine where RAYE blends her storytelling skill with her vocals in a way that just flows. I thought the build-up from the pre-chorus to that chorus with the percussion and then letting loose vocally conveys the regret and emotion so well. I really love the sentiment at the end where she ends on that hopeful high note of knowing that someone once loved her and she knows that she's going to, or at least hope she's going to have that again one day. Skin and Bones is a funky jam that finally turns up some heat and some BPM. The chorus is cheeky. It points out making love without actual love is a no-go for her. Verse 1 is about how she needs a gentleman that won't cancel via text. The pre-chorus recounts all of the effort that she puts into for the evening. It's the wild, wild west out there. Towards the end, she embraces and melds into that instrumental that just gets brassier and bolder, and it's a perfect tee-up for Where Is My Husband? There's a reason why this one was a breakout smash. It's a compact track that retains all of her brashness and bravado. The chorus is an earworm. It will get stuck in your head for months at a time. The verses are just as chatty and cluttered as the rest of the album. The anxiety, the impatience of trying to find someone worthwhile is a very universal sentiment. The bridge itself, honestly, I think is another chorus. The way she interplays with the production, I thought was a masterclass in just having fun on a track. And the biggest pro is that there's no random spoken word on this. Fields features her granddad Michael. It's a letter addressed to her granddad, checking in on him on a rare moment where she just lets herself kind of like stay still and ponder about the world. The chorus reflects her soulful pining for freedom and simplicity in life. The bridge recounts that her grandfather himself was a songwriter who just didn't make it, and that her work in a way is honoring his dream and legacy each day. Music is this bridge between generations and a way for her to heal herself and her grandfather. Joy is another family affair featuring her sisters Amma and Absolutely. It also samples Damn Right Am I Somebody? It's a track where James Brown asks that question to a Mr. Ray, but now it sounds like he's asking Ray herself if she's somebody throughout the song. She answers that, declaring herself as somebody towards the end. Ray introduces her sister. I think that her sister Amma's verse landed this soft ethereal touch, while Absolutely adds a dreamy sheen to the track. I thought all three sisters blended well in that final chorus. Happier Times Ahead is the last proper song on the album. It's a track that is just different vignettes of people's lives. Each one of them faces loss and the dull ache of everyday life and are uplifted in the chorus. Verse 2 is actually really personal to her. It's about her aunt grieving the loss of her husband, who she'd been married to for about 60 years. I thought it was a nice coda to this record. Fin is the curtain call of the record. It has a section that is a cheeky epilogue that sings about her gratitude for the listener listening to this record, but towards the end, she just goes through the effort to name every single collaborator on this album and thank them and everybody for their time. I thought it was a very classy way to end the record, but not something that I'll ever listen to again. This track, not the album. I will be listening to the album again soon. Overall, it's hard to fault RAYE for making something so grandiose. This music may contain hope at times, can be a little too much, but its insistence on being something of substance is more than welcome these days. I'd give it an 8.1 out of 10 and a recommend. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for your patience for this review. I know this album came out almost 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to take my time and really listen to this one. I had done other reviews. That week was so stacked. Let me know what you thought about this album in the comments below, what your favorite tracks were, and what else you want me to cover coming soon. A quick shout out to my members. Thank you so much for supporting my channel and taking that extra step. A shout out to my subscribers. I do this for you guys. And also just a really quick note, I will be disappearing midway through the month because I'm going to a trip to Japan, so I will not be reachable during that time. But if you follow my Substack, I will be posting about music news and things that I do in Japan while I'm gone, and I can't wait to come back towards the end of the month and continue coverage. Hope to see you next video.